This is David, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the different styles. Specifically, in this video, I wanted to go over Vinyasa yoga and how Vinyasa yoga can be a staple in your yoga journey, but there are also a few things to consider when it comes to Vinyasa yoga. So I wanted to take some time and discuss some of these concepts with you. So I hope you can take a minute to get comfortable, grab a beverage, and hopefully you can spend 15 minutes and go ahead and hear a little bit about what I have to say from my experience and from some of the things I learned. And if you feel like contributing any information, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment below so we can kind of talk about this together as a community and really kind of, just run over ideas together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. This is going to be a discussion on particularly Vinyasa yoga. So in America, we usually see four main staples of the asanas, which are the physical styles of yoga. And these include restorative, yin, hatha, and Vinyasa yoga. You're going to see things like bhakti, swari, yoga nidra, kundalini. These are all really popular styles of yoga that you're going to see around a lot, as well as Vinyasa yoga, but more often than not, you're going to see on TV shows, and particularly where I am located in Southern California, you're going to see a lot of Hatha yoga and Vinyasa yoga. Vinyasa has multiple meanings. One of the meanings of Vinyasa is to place in a special way, which is what we do with the breath. When you're in this style of yoga, you're going to move on an inhale and an exhale. So you're going to inhale in, take a movement, exhale, another movement, inhale, movement, exhale, another movement. Now, Hatha, you might still be stationed for 5 to 15 breaths. So say I lift my arms up in a Hatha pose, inhale, that's 1. Breath in, relax shoulders, it's 2. That's going to be more Hatha. When you're doing Vinyasa, Vinyasa is going to be more inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down. So immediately you might start thinking of the Surya Namaskaras, the sun salutations, and those are going to be Vinyasa sequence. You're also going to hear a lot in the sun salutations and other styles of Vinyasa where you're going to be told to do your Vinyasa. This is where we talk about the second meaning of Vinyasa. Vinyasa is going to be a sequence in between chaturanga, upward dog, and downward dog. So you're doing your sun salutations. Let's take that, for example. You're going to be standing in your mountain pose. You inhale. As you inhale, arms go up. You exhale, forward fold, arms go down. You inhale, look up. You got flat back. Exhale, chaturanga. You're going to go into your plank, which is like your push-up. You're going to inhale, chest comes out. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale. You're going to bring the butt back. You're going to be in that downward facing dog. Now that sequence of chaturanga, you go to the plank position, inhale, exhale. Chaturanga, plank position, inhale, chest out, upward facing dog, exhale. Bring the butt back, downward facing dog. That's your Vinyasa. And a lot of times you're going to do that in between your positions as you're transitioning, as you're going into your next position. And that's what your instructor is most likely referring to when they say do your Vinyasa as you're moving on to other poses. You're going to do that a lot in Ashtanga yoga. It's going to be a staple in Ashtanga yoga. Usually when you do Ashtanga yoga, which is the only Vinyasa that stays the same, every Vinyasa class is different. But usually when you do your Ashtanga, you are going to be doing movements such as Vinyasa in between the asanas, particularly once you get to the seated positions. The instructor, though, is going to be making adjustments on the fly depending on who's in the class, what the class needs, and why the class might need whatever course of action might be best for the student. So keep that in mind. And if you're teaching the class, you want to keep in mind everything I just said. The student's safety should come first. The comfort of the student should also come particularly important. The actual benefit of the class should be also extremely important. So you want to make sure that you're doing your best to get the most optimizing of your student possible. But if you have the option to be creative and throw in some vinyasas in there, that would be great, depending on what your goals are for that particular class, particularly if it's an Ashtanga class. Usually Ashtanga classes are a little bit more high maintenance. They're definitely a lot more high. You're going to hear the endocrine system. Um, Usually when you do a Ashtanga class, you would train in Mysore, India first off to be a Ashtanga instructor. So most Ashtanga instructors have trained out there under Patwabhi Joyce, who had passed away, I believe, in 2014. So training to be a Ashtanga instructor has been relatively difficult, particularly since he's passed. But you can still train in Ashtanga, and you can do Ashtanga styled courses. They just might not be a purist Ashtanga class per se. That said, usually when you do these classes, they're done 6 days a week. They're done pretty early, about 6:30 in the morning. No props usually for this style of yoga. Ashtanga, not necessarily Vinyasa. Vinyasa, feel free to bring your block and your blankets and your towel. But Ashtanga usually doesn't utilize props or water, and they just go for it. It's a very athletic, young man, young woman style of yoga. Most practitioners do end up getting some sort of injury, and then they usually move on to a hatha, which is a more balanced, easier on the body style generally. Granted, there are some hatha level 3s that are very intense and will kick your butt more than a vinyasa level 2 would, per se. So you want to keep that in mind. Anyway, when you're teaching us your vinyasa or doing your Ashtanga per se, since we're on the topic of Ashtanga, you're going to want to keep in mind the needs of your students and what they've walked in with the ability to do and adjust accordingly. You want to hopefully push them so that they can get to a place where they can thrive. That said, you want to be realistic and you want to put them in the best chance to succeed. So as an instructor, you're going to want to walk a little bit of a tightrope, which is not as hard as it sounds. Just give it your best of your ability, have a caring heart, keep an eye on your students, and it's actually not that hard. It's not rocket science, luckily, but it is something you have to be very much aware of what's going on, and you want to be committed. You know, this is not the time for you to be on your phone or to be distracted. Hopefully you can get all that out in the car or before the class starts, and then when the class is there, be in the here and now and let everything about the class be your only focus. That's usually the sign that you're going to do a great job teaching a class. If you're distracted, just try your best to check yourself a little bit. There's nothing wrong with having life go on. It's understandable. But you have a job to do, and your job is to be there for your clients, your students, your patients. So try to get that together. And if you need help, there's help out there. There's resources, there's books, there's friends, there's mentors. There's a lot of different help. Even videos like this can give you some insight on tips that you can do. What I would do is I used to listen to my sports radio in the car. I would do a little breathing, and I would make sure that I feel really good and competent before I would go in and teach my course. And then when I went to the course, I knew everyone that I was taking care of, my family, my friends. I knew everyone was where they needed to be. Everyone was relatively safe with what needed to be taken care of. Anything that had to get done could wait until after class. That was a really important thing for me to always keep in mind. Anything that really needed my attention, it can wait. But in that moment, I was going to give the class my attention. And that's kind of the recipe I would try to give to my clients and patients, and they did a fantastic job embracing that. I know parents traditionally struggle with that mindset, and it's hard to tell a parent not to worry about their kids and not to think about their kids. But when they're in the yoga class, the goal is for them to let go and to reset their neurons to a point where they could not think and just heal. And if they're worried about their kids or their family or their spouse, and they're really not giving themselves the ability to let go. So our job is to try to help them feel like they're in a safe enough space where they can reflect on their family, understand that they're exactly where they need to be, and that if even if their family did need them, they can wait and let them wait. Take this time to get better and go back to them refreshed. And that's kind of the goal and the point of these sessions. You know, we're not here to per se change anyone. We're just here to kind of be a guide and help people get where they need to go, just like we've gotten where we needed to go with guidance and help. And I look at some of the principles of some of these great men and women that laid a path. You can take, for example, Jesus and the idea of Jesus going to pray for 12 hours straight and in doing these specific duties that Jesus had to do. It's very obvious that people wanted Jesus and needed Jesus, particularly for miracles or guidance. But there were times where he had to shut all that off and do what he needed to do to be ready for his journey and to be refreshed so he could go to them and give them what they needed. So that's kind of the mindset that I try to apply. Um, I think it's kind of noble, personally, to try to live and follow the way that Jesus walked. I haven't heard anyone tell me that that made me a bad person for trying to model my behavior after Jesus. So I think uh, I think you might be okay there, whether you believe in those stories or not. I think there's some great lessons there, and I really advise everyone to take a look into the boundaries of Jesus and the healing that Jesus particularly was presenting for himself and others through having such boundaries where he can be refreshed and do the duties that he needed to do, whether that was through the temptation for the time being that he was isolated, or through his extended time praying, or through his training that we don't know too much about. Um, so those are things that you have to keep in mind as an instructor, is that as you're teaching and as you're a guide, you're just kind of presenting options for your clients and your patients and your students so that they can hopefully make well-informed decisions on their life that can be productive for them and find their own mentors and guides besides you to continue on the path. Usually, when they start on this path, they're going to have quite a bit of questions, and a lot of those questions can get answered by continuing to do the work and just coming to class. What I like to do, particularly in my Vinyasa classes, since usually um, we want to pass the time through some sort of some sort of knowledgeable community of positive energy and motivation. I like to throw in the Yoga Sutras. It's a really good idea to throw them in when you can. Sometimes I do it in Savasana at the end. Sometimes I throw it in during Downward Dog when we're in those static positions and really trying to get breath and trying to find ways to muscle through these difficult time frames. So for me, that has been really helpful, and I definitely highly recommend that as instructors, you give that a shot, throwing in the Yoga Sutras at those times. And particularly if you have one or two that you really like, or the yamas and niyamas, uh, any of the eight limbs, anything that you really cherish as part of the yoga journey, feel free to throw that in as an instructor. It's your course and your class. And as much as you're in there to just kind of keep an eye on the patients, clients, and yoga teacher trainers, it's also your opportunity to be creative and to flex a little bit as an instructor to provide some sort of positive values. So take your time and find something that's really beneficial that you want to throw in there. So let's go into the third meaning of vinyasa. And of course, it's pretty obvious by now, hopefully. If not, don't worry about it. But third meaning is the actual class, vinyasa. So the vinyasa class is never going to be the same. It's going to be a lot of inhaling and exhaling and doing your movements on the inhale and exhale. It's going to heat you up, going to definitely heat up your endocrine system. And it's going to usually be one of the most strenuous styles of yoga as comparative to hatha, definitely more than yin, and definitely far more than restorative. So you can expect to probably get a good sweat from doing your Vinyasa styled yoga classes. Vinyasa is arguably the most popular style of yoga that you're going to see in America and probably in any, I would say, first world country. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. It's just the most popularized by the media. It's probably what people would consider the most fun. I would tell everyone, and I do tell this to most people, to be greedy, try all the styles, kind of see what you need, when to do them when. I would do Vinyasa as a good cardio for me. I would do it definitely if I'm trying to get a solid version of cardio and I didn't do a specific cardio. I would do it then. I would do it if I need to detox. Vinyasa is great for that. There's a lot of great ways and reasons to do vinyasa, so I encourage you to look into them and really allow yourself to explore what types of vinyasas you like, and hopefully you can come to some great, fulfilling courses and classes doing vinyasa, whether you're going yourself and or teaching. So I hope that's been helpful. I want to thank you for taking the time to check out this video. I'm going to invite you to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get alerted with more videos. And most importantly, for me, I would like to see you leave a comment. That way we can kind of build a sense of community. But all in all, I'm just happy to have you here. We're going to have more of these in the future. So if you have questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Check out sawyogacourses.com, where you can get online yoga teacher training, which is Yoga Alliance approved. Right now, we are allowed to do this completely online, so you don't have to do a whole lot of relocating, which is a newer thing that's happened since the pandemic. So go ahead and check that out, and we will talk again soon.